Story time about how my boyfriend forces me to wear makeup. My boyfriend and I have only been dating for 4 months. I'm 22 and he's 6 years older than me. Our relationship has been pretty good. After 2 weeks of dating, he started slowly encouraging me to wear more and more makeup. I didn't think anything was wrong with this until he took me to Sephora and told me to choose makeup. I'm not a huge fan of makeup and I actually don't even know how to apply it. So when he took me to Sephora, I was just like, what? He said, pick whatever you want. I chose a few items, but he said, pick more. Then he said he wanted me to put on all the makeup so we could go to dinner. After that, he told me that anytime we would see each other, I had to wear a full face of makeup. I don't even know how to put on foundation. I quickly looked up tutorials to learn how to do it. I used makeup for about a week and after that I started breaking out. Told him I didn't want to wear makeup every time I saw him and if it was okay. And he said no. Point blank, no. He explained to me that I must wear makeup every single time I see him. I don't know how to feel about this, but I don't think it's right. And now he doesn't even touch me if I wear makeup. He even told me that I didn't look as cute as when I wear makeup. Then he actually took out a makeup bag from his car and gave it to me. Is this normal or should I break up with him?
Am I wrong for signing up my girlfriend for a social etiquette class before meeting my family? My girlfriend and I have been together for a little over 3 months and we agreed it's time for her to meet my family. For some context, I'm very blessed and had a fortunate upbringing. My girlfriend, on the other hand, faced some challenges in her life from a very young age, specifically financial challenges. She's a beautiful, interesting person despite all of the hardships she's faced. The only problem is that she lacks the manners that my family typically expects from someone I'm in a relationship with. My girlfriend is the first, less fortunate woman I'm dating. For that reason, I made the effort to prepare her for her first dinner with my family. I got her signed up for an online social etiquette course and thought it was a good idea. She claimed that I'm obviously embarrassed to be with her and that I should just marry a rich girl instead. She even accused me of being just another white privileged guy. To make matters worse, she said that it's racially insensitive of me to feel the need to teach her how to behave.
Story time on how the Mexican police wanted money from us. Listen, I know how Mexico works. I know that you gotta pay people off sometimes. I love my Mexico lindo, but it sucks that there's so much corruption. But bro, listen, we were going for a funeral this week and we have no time to waste. We're literally gonna arrive at the time that the funeral is starting. But at every single checkpoint, we get stopped by the military. And they just like make the biggest deal. They're like searching through our stuff. Me miraban la cara de criminal or something, you know. On this last military checkpoint, the military dude was like, y'all gotta get off. We wanna check your bag. As he's like scavenging through my bags. Thank you for that. Like if I didn't take time to fold my clothes. He's like, what does your husband do for work? He's a mechanic. He's like, okay, so what do you do? First of all, I'm not going to tell you why I do TikToks. That's embarrassing. But also, it's none of your business. So I'm like, I'm a housewife.
Story time on how I beat up a 4-year-old in pre-K. Okay, so boom. I know this sounds crazy, but you let me know if I'm in the wrong here. So I work in a daycare in Florida. It's very prestige and parents pay a lot of money to put their kids in this daycare. As a teacher, I'm obviously not allowed to hit kids because that's inappropriate, but sometimes kids can really get you out of character. So this 4-year-old boy was gifted, which means he was super smart. Also about to skip pre-K because he was that smart. But him being smart also came with him being very aggressive. Like if he raised his hand to answer a question but you don't call on him, he would get mad and yell at me. Or if a student didn't know an answer to a question, he would call that student stupid then give the correct answer. He was aggressive and his parents did nothing to stop him. Well, one day this 4-year-old boy took it too far. We were at the playground and for some reason he was mad at one of the girls in his class. I see him bullying her and I told him to stop. And he did. I turned around to tend to another student and boom. Part 2 on how I beat up a 4-year-old in pre-K. Okay, so boom, like I said, the little boy that was gifted was mad at one of the girls in his class. I seen him bullying her and told him to stop and he did. I turned around to tend to another student and boom. When I turned back around, I see him push her to the floor and she starts crying. I ran over to her and this little girl was on the floor bleeding. She was pushed onto the concrete floor and her bone on her knees was exposed. She was a very little fragile skinny girl and 4 years old, so that push was real bad. She was bleeding. I ran for help, called an ambulance, and they came and took her. I then took him to my classroom. I mean, I can't even lie to y'all. I really beat that boy up. He was crying in shock because I'm sure he was never disciplined, and I got fired. The girl did make a full recovery, but she had a very long recovery time. Now I can't work with kids anymore.
Am I crazy for marrying a man I just met in 5 days? This is not my story, this is my aunt's story, and it is true, and it is crazy. My aunt was on her way from Sarasota, Florida to, I believe, Vegas, and she was in the airport just chilling, not really thinking much of anything, when a man approaches her. He thinks that she's beautiful, and he approaches her and decides that he is going to ask her out on a date. Even though they're at the airport, they're luckily headed in the same direction. So once they land, he's like, okay, meet me at this restaurant tomorrow and we'll talk. Decides to go. She's like, okay, I'll meet him at this restaurant. They go, they talk. They talk, they eat, they slow dance to music. Something that was really important to her was her faith. And she asked him, hey, are you Christian? And he goes, yes, which was a complete lie. And she knew it was a lie too, but there was something about this man. I don't know. He asks her on the second day of meeting her, will you marry me? Have to think about it. She waits by the phone, waiting for his phone call the next day. He doesn't call. Apparently the numbers got mixed up. I don't know. They finally get in contact and he's like, okay, come meet me at this place. She goes, there's rides and stuff and they have a good time. And he asks her again, will you marry me? Okay. So they get married, like on the spot. They go into a church and they ask, they're like, hey, can we get married? Yeah. So they do. Thing is, he worked at a place and he needed to be back in Florida. So he had to leave right away. Leaving her by herself right after they'd gotten married, rude. She had to call all of her relatives and say, hey, I kind of got married. Everyone thought she was crazy. And you know what? Yeah. Thing is, my aunt, she doesn't speak English that well. She does now. But I asked my uncle and I said, hey, how did you communicate with her? He's like, I just had to. 38 years of marriage later and they're still going strong.
I'm 28 and my husband, 33, comes from a wealthy family and he himself has inherited a number of assets from his relatives. One of them is this huge house where we live in right now with a pool and a huge backyard with lots of features. We decided to host our first cookout after we got married 7 months ago and we invited both his family and mine. On Friday, both families came and we had lots of fun, then everyone went home later. I then got a phone call from my mom and she didn't sound okay. She asked whether or not my husband took money from his family before they attended the cookout. I was confused. I asked what she was talking about and she told me that my husband charged every single person from my side of the family who attended the event $25. I was utterly shocked and very angry and felt like this legitimately damaged my relationship with most of my family because almost all of them came over. Just that, but he got $275 from them. I was so livid, I hung up the phone and confronted him immediately. He told me that my family got to enjoy the space and the view and said that I should think of it a resort cookout since this house has a lot of luxuries. I told him it was a horrible thing for him to do and that what made it worse is the fact that his family didn't pay like mine had to. He laughed and reminded me that his family gave him this house. I demanded that he give the money back and he said no and that he won't even give it to me since the house is technically his. I took the money and gave everyone who paid their money back with a sincere apology for me. My husband found out and flipped out, calling what I did an overstepping and disrespectful thing. I told him he shouldn't have taken money from my family for being guests at our house. He corrected me saying it's his house and said that he bet my family had never gotten to attend a cookout at a house like this and that it was just $25.
You know how I've mentioned before that I get really, really depressed right before I start my period? That's not special or unique. That happens to a lot of people. But I get the period voice in my head and I can tell that it's my period voice because it's like, you suck. Your life is going nowhere. You're awful. And my logical voice is like, well, that's just not true. And also, it's very rude to say. And it doesn't matter that you know that it's your period that's making you sad. Like, you're still sad. Yesterday, I had no reason to cry. No whatsoever. I was just crying and eating cheese. And today, it's even worse. I get so down. You know when Hank Green said the air is butter? I know he wasn't talking about depression, but that's what it feels like. The air is butter, and I am sad. So I went to Wendy's to get a Frosty Chino, which is a Frosty with coffee. And I was like, maybe this will make me feel some joy, like jolt of life in my body, or make, you know, the lid wasn't on. And so I took a sip of my Frosty Chino that was supposed to make me happy. And now there's Frosty Chino on my sweater and on my pants, but you can't see because they're dark. And I just give up. I give up for today. I'm going to go home for everybody's safety. I'm going to cry because I want to, not because there's anything to cry about. I'm fine. I'm fine. But I just want to cry. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to watch something that's going to make me cry. I'm going to eat more cheese. I'm going to finish my ice cream coffee. That's probably just going to put me... Look at the lid popping off. I'm done today.